Hi, folks. It's Patty. Just checking to see if I was on the One Great Work Network, but I'm not. So I'm on YouTube, though, I believe. Let me double check. And I might have to let my doggies in. Thank you, Rocky. Right, right. I missed you last week. I'll explain my absence from last week in just a bit. I also have somebody that emailed me some questions, and I'll touch upon how you can get a hold of me. Hi, Stephanie. If you want to email me questions as well. So 1 second here. Yes, if you ever can't make one of my live streams and you want to message me or ask some questions, and then I can, address them during the live stream, and then you can watch it at your convenience. I'll just post it in YouTube. The link for my totally free but private Facebook community called Detox Support for the Self-Healer is now being posted in the chat box of YouTube. So, and usually when I repost these and share them, I do include the link for, I do include the links for my groups. My business page, my Facebook group pages, so all of that. All right, so looks like we have a few people here. Yeah, so I can, and I will get to your question in a second, Rocky. Thank you so much for posting that. But yeah, last week my dog gave me a little bit of a scare. He's almost 18. I don't know if y'all can see him behind me. He's kind of sleeping. I just fed everybody dinner, and when he eats dinner, he makes a big mess. I mean, he used to be very good at eating, but now he just kind of like laps things up. And because he can't stand very well, I hold him. And so I think him being kind of clumsy contributes to the messes that he makes when he eats. But I'm glad he has an appetite. Last Friday, he did not want to eat at all. And I really was kind of concerned that, okay, he's ready to transition. And so Friday and Saturday were incredibly hard on me, very emotional. I was not in a place last week to actually, actually the whole week has been, kind of that way, but it's been better because he's improved. I do know he's older, so it's kind of like I have complete gratitude for every improvement, and I have communicated to Willard in the best way I can that I will support whatever he wants to do. So if he wants to stick around, I will give him the best food and I will give him healing energy. So it's really up to him to let me know. And yeah, and I'm drinking a green juice right now. Ooh, it's kind of green. But anyway, yeah, that was last week. I'll share with you a story. I shared this with the students that are in my anatomy and physiology course that Dr. Morse and I are delivering together. And on, I guess it was Monday, this past Monday, I was supposed to be teaching the A&P course, and Willard was still not out of the woods yet. He was, again, didn't want to eat Friday. Saturday, he slowly started to eat a little bit, but not very much. Sunday was kind of the same. And on Monday, I was chatting or texting Dr. Morse and telling him about Willard's situation. And Dr. Morse is a very spiritual man. He told me he could sense a lot of beings around Willard. And I was kind of getting that exact same feeling, and I'll explain how. Even before I started talking to Dr. Morse, Monday morning, I came into the living room where I am right now, and this is where my computer is. And Willard was laying on his doggy bed where he normally is, and this little couch over here, that's where my other two dogs like to lay, or they usually lay on this one. The one that back there has a lot of stuff on it. It's usually a lot of pillows. And but Francis really likes this couch. That's his couch. That's where he lays. And Loretta kind of moves around to various locations. So when I was looking at that couch, it looked like there was a little indentation on the couch, like someone was sitting there, but nobody was there. And Francis was standing right in front of the couch, but he wasn't jumping on it. And I'm like, Francis, come on, jump on your spot. And he just started barking at it, and he didn't jump up there. And that was kind of weird. It was like, is somebody in your spot? Like, is somebody there? And I kind of was sensing that it was perhaps my dog Lucky, who passed away in 2011. I consider her kind of my spiritual connection dog, my soulmate dog. She and I had a very deep bond. And I had a kind of shamanic journey experience with her in 2013, several years after she passed. And she came back to me, and it was very profound. I had this amazing kind of energy come through my heart chakra. It was just the most amazing experience of my life. And that was with her. But Lucky, and that dog that is my spiritual connection, was really good friends with Willard. So Willard, he's almost 18 now. So he was maybe 5 or so when Lucky passed away, I think. And they had a good bond, the two of them. I mean, Lucky was about 10 years older than Willard, but still they got along well. They played. And Willard took it really hard when Lucky passed. I remember burying Lucky, and Willard was just laying there while my ex and I were burying Lucky in our backyard. And Willard he didn't have much of an appetite that day. So it was quite amazing to see the emotional connection that dogs experience when, they lose a loved one. Okay. I'm trying not to be too emotional during this live stream, but anyway, that was very profound. But another thing happened while I was texting Dr. Morse. I've been placing moldavite crystals on Willard's back. And I started doing this about 6 months when he first started having issues walking and standing. And I just was trying to add energy to his vertebral column. The vertebral column, very sacred, with the number of vertebrae. Now, dogs have obviously a different number, but it is an energy conduit. And so I was placing the moldavite crystals. I have 3 of them. And Friday, when Willard wasn't doing too well, that night, I picked him up and put him on my bed, and he slept with me that night. He had been sleeping on the doggy bed at the foot of the bed, or on the floor, but right, next to the foot of the bed. And I have a nice big comfy, orthopedic, lovely doggy bed for him to sleep on with nice covers. But I remember being on my bed that night. I'm like, I just want to be close to him. So I picked him up, put him on my bed Friday night, and laying there, I put the crystals on his back. And then the next morning, when I woke up, without thinking about it, when I was getting ready to pick Willard up to, take him off the bed, all of the crystals flew off when I picked him up, and I lost one of them. I couldn't find it. Now, my bedroom is kind of way down the hall. And, Saturday I was still working with Willard, doing, some energy healing with him, Reiki and whatnot. And so I was really concerned just about Willard. And I thought to myself, well, I'm sure the crystals will show up. I'll go back and look for it. And I did. Like Saturday and Sunday, I kept going back to my bedroom looking for it. I moved my bed around. I'm like, where is this crystal? I need to find it. Could not find it at all. I didn't know where it was. I could only find 2 of the crystals that had fallen, not the 3rd one. And my dog Loretta is barking to come in. Do I let her in? I think I should. Give me a second. I'm going to go let my little angel, Loretta Jean. Yeah, sorry about that. Now the other dog wants to come in. I tell you, my dogs are crazy. But anyway, coming back to the story about the crystals, I'm texting Dr. Morris back and forth. And Dr. Morse actually said I should take, that day off to be with my dog, but he could sense the energy around Willard. And while I'm sitting there, texting Dr. Morse, I was sitting next to Willard, giving him healing energy. And the strangest thing happened. It was amazing. The crystals, there were 3 of them on his back. All 3 were present along his back where I normally would place them. Now, keep in mind, Saturday and Sunday, I had moved Willard back and forth multiple times. I could not find for 2 days this crystal. The crystals fell off. I found the other 2 in my bedroom. The 3rd one I could not find. And then it magically appeared on his back where I would have placed it. And there it was. I was like amazed. I could not believe that the crystal just showed up while I was texting Dr. Morris, and I told him this, and he just his reply was, enjoy. I thought maybe Dr. Morris had something to do with the crystal being found, because he was picking up other energies. I gotta go let Francis in 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I also wanted to get some water because, like I said, this green juice is really green. But yeah, the 3rd crystal came out of nowhere. So that was strange. Come here, Lavetta. You want to say hello to people on the live stream? How about that? She's being bashful. Come here. Okay, so be it, little one. Yeah, you can see where the 2 dogs lay normally when I'm at the computer. But yeah, it was just a powerful day, Monday. And Willard started doing a lot better from then on out. He's still not 100%, obviously, but he's, he's hanging in there. He's eating again. In fact, he just ate most of his meal for dinner. And after he eats, he's super tired. So he's just sleeping right now. But he is a trooper, and I call him my miracle puppy because since 2014, he's been having health issues going back and forth. And you know what? I don't even know if my audio for, let's see something. Yeah, I'm not even on the One Great Work Network, so I'm going to stop even recording this. I don't think I have audio here anyway, because last time I did it, it didn't work. And I don't know where the producer is, so I'll just stop. I'll just stop everything. We're stopping it. And that way I can focus on the YouTube folks. Now I'm going to move something, people in YouTube, so please tell me if you can still see me. I moved my screen. I think it should be good. So if you have an issue seeing me or if anything changed, I changed like one setting. So please let me know if there's any issues with audio or video coming through. I do need to pull up the questions that were provided to me by somebody, like I said, and I did post in the chat box my private Facebook group. If you are interested in joining, it's called Detox Support for the Self-Healer, because we really all should be self-healers. Deep down, I think the body knows what to do to stay healthy, and we just kind of need to support that endeavor. The thing I like about many of the natural modalities is that instead of suppressing and opposing the expression of symptoms, we help with that delivery of those symptoms, because oftentimes the symptoms themselves are the way in which the body is removing the cause of what's triggering the illness. So it needs to come out, right? If something's inside of you that shouldn't be there, it needs somehow to come out. And a lot of times the symptoms we express are that coming out. Stephanie just told me, and Rocky both told me that you can hear me, you can see me, so wonderful. All right, so I am going to start with the emailed question, because he did email me earlier this week, and I want to make sure I get to that. And then I will get to Rocky's posted question, and then anyone else that might have typed anything in the chat box. So the person that sent me this question, and I believe he mentioned I could mention his name. Yes, his name is Gary. And Gary, I will read what he wrote to me. Gary wrote, I recall one video in which you mentioned how all animals eat their food raw, whether they're an herbivore or a carnivore. You then posed the question, what foods can people eat raw? That question was akin to a slap upon the head. I thought, it's so obvious. Why didn't I think about it before? Oh, you know what? I don't know if he wanted me to read that. Never mind. That wasn't his question. I just started reading at the top of what he sent me. Here are the questions. So question number 1, I go to the gym regularly and was wondering if you could delve into the subject of protein. We need protein to repair muscle tissue after strenuous effort. But how much protein does one really need? In other words, is the body losing or flushing protein out somehow and require new protein sources to replenish? We'll start with that question and then I'll move on to the second question. With regards to protein, our body really does a great job with recycling proteins. So proteins are long chains of amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. And there are about 20 different amino acids, and we can put them in different combinations to make long chains that fold up to specific shapes. And the cool thing about proteins is that they can, because of there are many different building blocks and how they take upon the shapes that they develop into, they can structurally become almost anything that can act as a tool in our body. So proteins work as enzymes, proteins work as hormones. They are the contractile proteins in our muscles, helping to shorten our muscles. You know, our heart obviously is a muscle, cardiac muscle tissue. There's smooth muscle within various hollow organs. So protein in all of those organs. We have structural proteins like keratin in our hair, collagen in our skin. We have antibodies, which our immune cells release. Those are proteins. So proteins are many, or I should say, very diverse in their functions in the body. And they're quite important. We need protein, right? We need all of these various things to do work within our body. But here's the cool thing. When an antibody or an enzyme or a structural protein or a contractile protein like actin and myosin, when they get kind of worn out, they start to break down and they disassemble back into amino acids. And these amino acids are often recycled. So it's kind of like bricks building up a house. You know, if you have a brick house and let's say that you want to build a new house, you might break down your brick house, but you're not going to throw all of the bricks away if they're still good. I mean, some of the bricks might be chipped. Okay, yeah, you can do something with those. But the good bricks, you're probably going to use for building the new house. And that's what our body does with amino acids. We recycle more of the amino acids than we really need from our diet. You know, we really have a very low protein requirement. I mean, the World Health Organization, which I wouldn't exactly trust, but, you know, they do recommend that people need a 4% requirement, 4% of their calories coming from protein. People like Dr. Douglas Graham, who wrote the book called 80-10-10, he recommends 10% of our diet should come from protein. 80-10-10 stands for 80% carbohydrate, much of which he recommends being fruit, 10% protein, 10% fat. And by the way, when you eat fruit, you're getting protein, you're getting amino acids. I think that 10% is a good number. I agree with Dr. Doug Graham. I think 10% is a good amount of protein. And if you eat a raw vegan diet of raw fruits and greens, you're going to get that 10%, no problem. Greens have probably a higher amount of amino acids and proteins within them than the fruits do, but you're still, again, fruits. I mean, fruits have everything that we need. So even if you didn't eat the greens and you just stuck with the fruits, you're getting many minerals, many amino acids, obviously simple sugars, which are what we need for energy. You're getting all of it. And it's so funny how people think certain diets are deficient, which we can talk a little bit about if you'd like. I guess there was the raw vegan influencer that unfortunately passed away. Many people are talking about her. And no, her diet did not kill her. I think it's so funny how people, Francis Eugene, son. Sorry, folks. I can take it back outside. But anyway, so yes, when you exercise, it is true, the muscles do experience little tears, but they're not losing protein necessarily. I mean, their cell membrane of the muscle cell, the muscle fiber, it's called the sarcolemma, and it is attached to the myofibrils, which are the bundles of proteins within the muscle cell, by little little connectors, and called, if you've heard of the disease called muscular dystrophy, the dystrophy is due to the mutation in that connector between the sarcolemma, the cell membrane, and the bundles of protein. But anyway, I won't go on a tangent there. But usually when you exercise, what happens is the sarcolemma, which is the cell membrane of the muscle cell, it tears. And it easily repairs itself. And that's just phospholipids. Those are phospholipid bilayers that make up our cellular membranes. And those are just constantly being repaired whenever a cell experiences that tear. Now, most cells in our body, when they experience a tear, the cell will die. And that's okay, because a lot of our cells are capable of mitosis. They divide to replace the dead cells. Muscle fibers don't do that. They're really long cells. They're multinucleate cells, and they repair themselves instead of dividing, because they can't divide. They are what we call permanent cells. So they are incapable of mitosis after, we're born. So, the cardiac muscle cell is the same. Neurons in our brain, many of them can't divide. That doesn't mean that we can't help to strengthen and repair these cells, right? But they just don't divide after they've been formed. So they just need to repair themselves. And that's what muscle cells do. And so that's more of a, phospholipid bilayer type of activity, not necessarily a protein activity. But even if you did lose some, contractile proteins in your skeletal muscles, again, you get amino acids from other sources of other proteins that have been disassembled, and you can use those amino acids to build new ones. And you get some from your diet. Like I said, I would say about 10% of your diet should be amino acids, because that's what you're absorbing into your blood. You're not absorbing big proteins. They're too big to get into the blood vessels, into the capillaries. You need the smallest subunits, which can pass into the capillaries more easily. So hopefully that answers your question about that. The next question, I watched the Jillian Berry interview with Sarah Erica at your suggestion, and it was pretty eye-opening. And I do recommend that interview. Jillian Berry interviewed Sarah Erica twice. The first video, I think, is like 40 minutes, and then the second interview was like about an hour. I recommend watching both of them. Sarah Erica was on death's door. And she, very young, she started becoming quite ill. And she had, I think, a genetic condition too that didn't help. But everything kind of got incredibly worse when she had gotten vaccinated, and hopefully I don't get kicked off YouTube, but she was joining the army, and they require certain vaccines, which that is a truthful statement. I'm not lying, YouTube, by saying that. But yeah, that's when things got bad for her. And so she got to the point where she couldn't keep anything down. She lost a lot of weight. She was vomiting, like, she describes how vomit was even coming through her nose, like nothing. She couldn't keep anything down. She developed gastroparesis. Her body was just starting to break down in her 20s. So she went on a juice cleanse. And at first, it was hard for her to keep the juices down, but she kept trying. And eventually she was able to, get enough juices in every day. And she stayed on this juice cleanse for a full year, 366 days of juices. I'm juicing right now. Well, I did eat some grapes and some celery earlier today, so I'm not exclusively cleansing, but I've been toying around with the idea of doing a juice cleanse, and I think they're great ways to be productive and to cleanse your body. But she what I found remarkable, because Jillian Berry, I really like her YouTube channel. I recommend subscribing because she does interview a lot of great raw vegans, fruitarians. She's an upbeat young lady, and I like her YouTube channel. Anywho, when she was interviewing Sarah Erica, Sarah mentioned, or Jillian asked her what kind of juices did she make day in and day out. Sarah Erica said, well, if I'm going to do this for a year, I'm going to drink what I enjoy. And she enjoyed the fruit juices. She didn't really do any green juices. All she did was fruit juices. And she talks a little bit about what her favorite fruits were. But I liked that she did that. I mean, she was just being brutally honest about what she drank. So many juicing influencers, if you will. I hate that word influencer, but people that are kind of big in the raw vegan scene that do promote juicing. And I have nothing against these individuals, but they're always saying, make sure you get your green juices in. Those are important. And I think there's a place for green juices, obviously. And there are many times when I recommend green juices to clients, more for balancing. But I think if you really want to detox and you're really sick, the fruits or the fruit juices are really powerful. I mean, they are just the most astringent of all of the foods we have to choose from on this planet. Fruit is amazing because first and foremost, humans, if we get to the spiritual level of what we're here on this planet to do, as spiritual beings, I think we can become quite empathetic. We have a kind of, we can see when someone's suffering and we can feel what they're feeling. Maybe we don't experience it the same way because we haven't not lived their life, but we can sit with that person and say, okay, I feel you and I can be there for you. And I think empathy is something beautiful. It's a beautiful human emotion that all humans have. And as humans, many people, find plant-based foods because they don't want to harm animals, right? So there's that. But when we even look at the vegetable and plant kingdom, the fruit is not harming anyone. It's not even harming the plant. Yes, when you take greens, the green will regrow, but the green leaf is made up of cells. And there have been people that say that these cells can feel, right? And are we harming that plant? Does it feel pain when I bite into a salad green? I mean, that's a question we can ask ourselves, right? I mean, if we're going to ask it about the animals, can we ask it about the plants? Can plants feel? But the fruit is something that the plant produces outside of itself as an energy source, not only for itself, but for animals to eat, because it's also a way for the plant to spread its seeds, if you will. I mean, fruits have seeds in them because that's how the plant can spread and procreate and move around, because it doesn't have feet to walk. It requires animals and humans to eat the plant and to either spit out the seeds or poop out the seeds, and then the seeds fall somewhere and they grow again. So really, the fruit is just beautiful in the way that it is meant for humans to eat and also not harm the plant producing it. Like an apple tree can hang around for many, many years and keep producing apples. If you eat all of the leaves off the apple tree, it'll stop producing the apples because it needs the sun hitting the green leaf so it can produce the glucose or the simple sugars or the fructose. And then that gets put into the apple as a storage form of, where all of that simple sugar is. And then humans, us, we look at the fruit. First and foremost, we can tell when the fruit is ripe because we have color vision. I think that's an adaptation to being a fruit eater, is to know when the fruit is at its peak ripeness. So we know when to pick it, when to harvest it, and when to eat it. We have hands that can climb the tree, can grab the fruit. And then we have a sweet tooth. We naturally enjoy things that are sweet. So, it just points to that fruit is at the pinnacle of healing. I would say water fasting is really probably a little bit more powerful, but Dr. Morse has a chart, and, I can pull it up really quick. Dr. Morse has a chart that I share with people about the levels of detox. Let's see if I can search for it really quick. I don't know. It's not letting me search for it. But anyway, it's like this little pyramid of what are the levels of how fast we detox. Let's see if I can search this word. One more time, I'll try to find it, but if not, my computer is acting really strange right now. I used to like it when I could find something based on the image it had. Oh, I think I found it. Okay, I found it. I will share my screen so you can see this handout that I actually obtained when I worked with Dr. Morse at his clinic as something I could share with my clients. So where the hell is my Zoom at? Hold on. I can see I'm still on YouTube because I'm going to address the YouTube questions in just a second, but I can't find my Zoom link. All right, let's do this again. Okay, so you can see here the levels of detoxification. Water fasting is obviously at the pinnacle, but notice what's right underneath water fasting as the next best, most powerful way to cleanse the body: mono fruit juice. So what does that mean? That means apple juice. That means orange juice. That means grape juice. So just juicing one fruit and that's it. Now this juice I'm drinking right now is not a mono juice. It has a lot of spinach in it. I think I threw in a few carrots, some celery, some cucumber, some lemon, a couple of oranges, just to kind of make it a little bit palatable. I have to have something sweet in my green juices. I can't do pure green juice. Not so yum. But anyway, that's the second most powerful, mono fruit juice. And then beyond that, the third most powerful, mono fruits. So eating nothing but grapes, eating nothing but apples. I think a few weeks ago, if you were here with me, Peter, I don't know if Peter's here today, but Peter we shared his eye photos. That was on nothing but apples, where his eyes went from brown to blue, his natural true color. And then you've got your fruit juices, your fruit smoothies. So Sarah Erica did nothing but fruit juices. Still very powerful way to cleanse, right? Fruit smoothies and then fruits. And then, when you get into the greens, you're detoxifying, but it's not as powerful. The greens are more of a balancer and they're good for regeneration. So after you've cleansed yourself to build back up, yes, you can build back up on fruit. I've, worked with people that have done that. But you can maybe build back a little bit more so if you add some green. So great for regeneration. And then, beyond that, nuts, seeds, cooked vegetables, leafy greens, not as powerful for detoxification. And then at the bottom, these are foods that should be avoided: animal protein, fish, dairy, eggs, cheese, grains, refined and processed starches, and, the processed sugars. They're toxic. So anyway, there's that. Hopefully that was informational for you. And I will get to your second question here, Gary. Oh wait, I didn't really address the Sarah Erica question. So anyway, in reference to Sarah Erica in that interview does talk about ATP. She apparently was, when she was doing her juice cleanse, taking a biology course and learning about cellular respiration. And by the way, if you take my anatomy and physiology course, you learn all about this at the International School of the Healing Arts with Dr. Robert Morse. So That's where my anatomy and physiology course is being offered. I will put, if you watch this after the initial live stream, I'll put that link for the course below the video. But anyway, ATP is basically an energy currency molecule. So we produce ATP primarily and preferentially from simple sugars. So glucose, fructose, these are the fuels that our body finds the most easiest to oxidize, meaning to break covalent bonds and release electrons, because electrons are what hold atoms together in a molecule. And when that covalent bond is broken and electrons are released, those are high energy electrons, and fruits have very high energy electrons within them. So the fructose molecule, the glucose molecule, they have high energy electrons. And by the way, when we break these simple sugars down, it's not as easy, oh, just break the simple sugar down and we get the energy. You also need cofactors. So when you look at enzymatic activity, cofactors are what help the chemical reaction work most effectively, most optimally. So what do you know? Fruits also have the cofactors needed to completely oxidize these simple sugars. So those are going to be like your minerals, like magnesium, manganese. And if you're missing any of those cofactors, any of those minerals, or even the vitamins, then you won't be able to completely break down the simple sugar. So it's all important, but what's so beautiful is the fruit has everything in it to help us fully break down the simple sugar so we can maximize the amount of ATP we produce. And we get about 36 ATPs per simple sugar molecule when we break it down completely in the presence of oxygen. So oxygen obviously gives us a lot of help here too. We can break down some sugars without oxygen. That's called anaerobic catabolism, but with oxygen, again, it's a little bit more effective. So that's ATP. That is how we produce ATP. You can also break down fat, and in cases of starvation, protein for energy as well, right? So fat, the problem with breaking down fat for energy, I mean, it's there really, I think, evolutionarily to help humans survive. So, when we eat a lot of food, when times are good and there's a good harvest, we might put on a little bit of extra weight. Now, back in the day, before there were processed foods, a little bit of extra weight was probably like maybe 5 pounds extra. And we would store it in certain areas of the body. And fat does have a purpose, obviously. So it helps to insulate organs. We find fat around our kidneys to help protect them, fat around other organs. So it insulates, it's a storage molecule, and we can break down that fat through a process called beta oxidation, where these long fatty acid chains, we break off 2 carbon molecules at a time. It's called and we use those 2 carbon molecules to get incorporated into the cellular respiration cascade. And we can produce ATP from that. So fat can be broken down for ATP as well. The only problem is when we break down fat for ATP, we produce a byproduct called ketone bodies, which I'm sure many people have heard of because there's this whole craze called the keto diet, where people are trying to divert their body's way of producing ATP so that they're only breaking down fat and not breaking down the simple sugars, which our body likes to break down. And when you break down fat and you do that exclusively, you produce a lot of these ketone bodies, and ketones are acidic, and they lower the pH of the environment in which they're produced within. So it's not ideal because, our blood, which is a very important fluid in our body, is an alkaline fluid. It has a pH of about 7.4, so it needs to be slightly alkaline. We don't want it to be too acidic. So yes, it is good to break down fat when we need to, especially when we can't get sources of simple sugars from fruits, because perhaps, it's a cold climate and there are no fruit trees, and we need to have something else to rely upon. Proteins, on the other hand, even though, yes, they too can be broken down, when we're breaking down proteins for energy, we're at the state of starvation pretty much. It's kind of a very far third place as far as the body's preference, as far as using it as a fuel molecule. So if you're a cell, the first thing you're going to choose is a simple sugar. And then if you don't have that available, then you'll choose the fats. And if you don't have that available and you don't have the simple sugars available, then you'll start breaking down proteins. Proteins, remember though, we prefer using them as building blocks to build things the body uses. So think of proteins as tools, like tools for muscle contraction, tools for enzyme activity, tools for structural components of our hair and our skin. So we don't want to break it down as a fuel source for sure. Yeah, so protein is not an ideal source to be converted into ATP. So I think I answered your questions, Gary. Thank you for sending those in. And hopefully one of these days you can join the live stream. I would love to have you here. I'm going to come back to YouTube, though, and pull up the YouTube questions. So let me go back to, let's see, Rocky had a question. My moons on my nails are not present besides the thumb. Is this a sign of thyroid issues? I've heard this could also be a zinc deficiency or a sign of poor health. You know, I mean, I've heard those kind of things too. A lot of times when I'm looking at the nails, you know, I look at signs of adequate circulation because, you know, there are blood vessels that are, so your nail bed, the skin under, or the nail has skin underneath it, which is called the nail bed. And right there, that lanula, where it's a little bit lighter, it looks like a half moon. The blood vessels are a little bit deeper into the skin. So that's why it looks more white and less pink. And so sometimes I look in that area to determine if, you know, there's adequate circulation going on. So is this person, do they need, obviously, you know, some certain herbal formulas can help with circulation. Dr. Morris has a blood circulation formula that would be called for in such a situation if there's not enough pink in the nails. I mean, if it's really white. Now, if yours is completely gone, I mean, I'd have to look into that regarding the thyroid. So I'm not going to comment on that right now because I really don't know per se. I mean, keep in mind, the thyroid gland controls our metabolism. And if you're having a thyroid issue, that usually affects heat production and metabolic activity. And it could be, you know, you're not generating the heat to move things around, you know, your metabolism is slow. So it's possible. And then your next question, Rocky, was hold on a second. Well, there's a lot of questions here. Yahoo. I don't know if I can read this. Hold on. Let me move this over to my other screen. My screen right in front of me is a little bit bigger. I totally understand. I've had a senior dog before. Oh, you're talking about my dog. Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the kind words about Willard. Willard he's my miracle puppy. I love him. Okay, how should we send you a question, reply to you, our post? So if you join my Facebook group, if you joined and you requested me to send you information, you will be able to chat with me if you connected to that. So you can just post in the Facebook group and say, hey, I'm going to send you a text message if you didn't request additional information for me, because when you do that, that way we have a connection in Facebook. You can also go to my Facebook business page. I try to look at those messages, but you know, I've been so crazy the past couple of weeks, and I've been really doing a lot of healing with Willard. So I really have been kind of delinquent on getting back to my business page and getting back to everybody. So I feel bad. Right now, I'm like at a 4-day turnaround with my clients that I work with to getting their emails back to them because I've got so many emails to respond to. Plus, I'm writing a book with Dr. Morse and the new school year is coming up. So it's like I'm trying to catch up with. I'm playing catch up right now. But message me in any different way you can. So that would be good. Let's see. Chantal is here. Hello, Chantal. I'm so glad you're here. I know it's probably really late for you where you are. She had a question. Also, we get protein in plants. That's true. We always supply the body with new amino acids. Nothing we need to stress about. It only became a massive thing because of animal product lobbies. Very good point. Very good point. And Rocky, I guess, saw the video about Sarah Erica. I think that's what you're mentioning. Oh, Peter is here. Awesome. Peter says, in class, I asked about how malignant cells reach the other side of the body. The answer sounded like they don't really travel. I thought a biopsy determines if the primary was left kidney or right lung. I thought a biopsy determines if the primary was left kidney or right lung. Well, to answer your question about malignant cells, to explain how they would travel from one organ to another organ, according to the theory Dr. Morse has put forth, is that cancer cells are not traveling. I mean, they do travel to some extent in the fact that our lymphatic system, which is also our immune system, our protection, our lymphatic vessels the lymphatic capillaries have these overlapping endothelial cells, and they can pull in large substances like cells, like abnormal cells, defective cells, cancerous cells, and take them to a lymph node where it can mount an immune response, because our lymph nodes house immune cells, specifically the T lymphocyte, which is the specific immune cell which destroys cancer cells. T lymphocytes release a substance called tumor necrosis factor, which directly kills cancer cells. And our lymph nodes have those. So it would make sense that our lymphatic system would pick up cancerous cells and carry them to a lymph node so we can destroy them. And I shared in our class the other day that the thoracic duct was also showing evidence of being a place where cancerous cells die off. So to answer your question, yes, the malignant cells are moving, but they're moving to a place where they will be destroyed and then later gotten rid of. Okay. Now, if our lymphatic system is incredibly congested, the cancer cell won't be able to move, and it might start spreading locally, being that the cells are dividing. Why? Because the area is very acidic, very toxic, and by creating more copies of itself, it's creating a barrier between itself and the acidic and damaging environment. So it would only make sense. It's kind of like if you were in a area where there was war going on, and you had a bunch of bricks. I'm using bricks as an analogy quite a lot in this live stream. But let's say you had a lot of bricks and you're like, wow, they're throwing bombs out there. I better protect myself. So I'm going to put a bunch of bricks around my house to make it further of a thicker barrier, so that if there's a bomb that comes my way, it's going to be harder for it to hurt myself. Right? So that's kind of what I think of cancer. Is like it's kind of becoming overstimulated as a way to protect itself. But yeah, so if it's moving to another location, it's just because the lymphatic system is trying to get rid of it. But yeah, in allopathic medicine, they act as if these cancerous cells are going from one organ to another organ and taking up shop in this other organ and creating cancer in that organ. Why do you get cancer popping up in multiple organs? Well, because acidosis and toxicity is often systemic. It's not like when you eat a junk food diet your whole life that you're just going to have the crap from the junk food accumulate in one area of the body and not affect any other area. It's going to affect everything. So when you are eating a diet of inappropriate foods, and I showed you that list earlier, right? So like the animal products, the processed foods, the cooked oils, the rancid cooked oils that they fry everything in, the excessive amounts of salt and simple sugars that are, and I'm not talking about the sugars in fruit. Fruit sugars are what we need because they're packaged with the vitamins and minerals that allow us to most effectively get the ATP from those simple sugars, right? And there's many other great things in the fruit as well. I mean, one thing that you know about fruit is it has color. The thing that gives fruit its color are the phytonutrients that are antioxidants that are protecting us. So it's just win-win when you eat fruit. But if you eat sugar, so you're taking just the sugar, nothing else. So no vitamins, no minerals, no phytonutrients, no antioxidants. You're just taking the sugar, isolate it, and you're creating a very high concentrated amount of simple sugar. You're just going to clog up your system. And your body doesn't know what to do with that. So when you eat like processed sugars, like from cakes and candies, and, high fructose corn syrup as an example, and that gets absorbed like en masse. It's like all of this sugar is coming in all at once. So it radically spikes up your blood sugar levels. And it's all sent to the liver via the hepatic portal vein. The liver's like, what the hell is this? And so the liver's trying to, store it. Now, the liver might try to store some of it as glycogen, but it's going to have way too much to store, and it can't dump the rest back in the blood because that's way too much glucose, and glucose is very damaging to our blood vessels. This is why diabetics that have, chronic hyperglycemia, they develop a lot of cardiovascular problems, like they can't get blood flow to their limbs and they end up losing their foot, or they don't get blood flow to their brain, they have a stroke. So the body knows too much sugar in the blood is dangerous. So the liver tries to store it. And so if it can't store it as glycogen, it's going to store it as fat. And that's where you see fatty liver disease. And now I remember when I was in medical school, fatty liver disease was only seen in alcoholics. But now we're seeing it in non-alcoholics. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is now more common than alcoholic fatty liver disease, because of the high number of processed sugars that are in the diet. These are just destroying our metabolism. They're creating inflammation, and you don't even see, you do see fatty liver disease. That's very common these days, but now there's fatty pancreas disease. Fat also accumulates in the muscles. What's so interesting is a lot of these bodybuilders that have like these huge muscles, it's not muscle protein. That's some of it, but a lot of it is fat, because their muscles are so inflamed because they're eating all of these like high protein foods, very inflammatory, and they're taking like these protein shakes and raw eggs and throwing it all in a blender and just, downing it. And that's very acidic. And so as that accumulates in their muscles and their muscles become acidic, the fat cakes around those muscle cells, causing their muscles to look bigger. And what you see in like bodybuilders, I don't know if any of you guys saw Dr. Morse's recent video where Ben was in Florida. He took our A&P course, and he joined one of our classes recently. He is a former bodybuilder, huge. If you saw the pictures on that video, he had huge muscles, but he found the light, right? Because many bodybuilders, if they stay in that industry, they don't do well. You guys hear my little baby? She's dreaming and she's making cute little noises. But anyway, many bodybuilders, they end up developing many kidney issues, and they end up on dialysis because it's just so damaging, all of that protein that they use to make their muscles so big. Anywho, I kind of got off a tangent, but how did we talk about that? And from the malignant question, I don't know. I sometimes wonder how I end up on a certain topic. Okay, so Peter also asks, my assumption has been malignant regeneration occurs at the weakest organs first. The body attempts to eliminate the cells, and they are stored in tumors wherever the pathway is limited or blocked. Well, yeah, that kind of goes along, Peter, with what I was saying. If the lymphatic system is congested, which is why Dr. Morse thinks that the lymphatic system is central in this whole story of cancer and almost every other chronic disease. Because when you have a congested lymphatic system, the pathway of removing things that are abnormal or toxic is blocked. And so, yes, it could be that where the lymphatic congestion is worse is where the cancer pops up and grows the fastest, because that's where it's the most inflamed, the most acidic, because the backup in the lymphatic system is trapping those acids around those cells, stimulating the cells to divide. So I agree with that. And when when it's when it's so-called spreads, it's just because another organ is also experiencing lymphatic congestion and lymphatic stagnation, and the cells are dividing. It's not like the cancer cell went from the liver to the kidney or the kidney to the lung. Both organs were experiencing lymphatic congestion, and they couldn't allow the cancer to spread, or they developed their own tumors there. But yeah, the spreading of a cell to another organ, it's ridiculous. And I agree with Dr. Morse. When I was in medical school, it sounded ridiculous even to me back then, before I knew Dr. Morse. I remember, when I was in med school in my early 20s, learning about cancer and just thinking, well, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I don't think this little cell has the wherewithal to know that, hey, I'm going to hang out over in the kidneys because I'm done, wreaking havoc here in the lungs. No, I think both organs are diseased. Both organs experience lymphatic congestion. I didn't have a name for it back then. I didn't, I knew about the lymphatic system, but, when I started working with Dr. Morse, that's where everything I thought was, weird about medicine, that's where he put everything like in a very easy to understand way, so I can understand really the truest way to create health. And it's not by suppressing symptoms with more toxicity, with more drugs. All right, Chantal writes, what happened to Zana D. Art is tragic. People are saying it was anorexia, but I looked at her posts and timeline, and I think there was either disease or substance abuse from the fast deterioration. Yeah, I think it is sad. And I don't know a lot about this young lady. I think she was like 39 years old, which is young, I mean, I'm in my 50s, so anybody younger than me is, I would say, young. But I didn't really know a lot about her. I've been seeing a lot of people post about her, and it is tragic. It's so sad, because raw foods are like the ideal food for life. And so all species on this planet eat their food raw. And, unless they have been industrialized like humans and even pets, because, if you look at the crap at grocery stores, the dry food that's, got a shelf life of 3 years, that's not food. That's just something that has a shelf life. And that's why animals don't live as long as they should, especially our pets. I remember talking to this woman who wanted to become a veterinarian, and then she later got into homeopathy, but she was commenting on when she was going into vet studies to become a veterinarian. She lived, I think, somewhere in Canada, and she learned all of these things about the veterinarian sciences, and she was telling her family, like, oh, we need to vaccinate our cats. We need to do this, that, and the other. And her parents were like, our cats are doing pretty good. They live to be about 30 years of age. They're fine. Why do we need to vaccinate them? But if you think that we do, maybe we should start. And as soon as they started doing that, because before that, her family wasn't doing anything to the animals. They were just letting the cats and the dogs live their natural life, and they fed them real food that they prepared for the animal. But then, when the young lady was learning all of these things about the pharmaceutical industry and her veterinarian studies, the animals at her home started dying earlier and earlier. And then her parents were like, okay, we got to stop doing this. This is killing all of the animals. So we're no. And that's when she woke up, and she's like, oh, maybe I don't want to be a vet. And that's when she switched to, still wanting to work with animals, but then she chose, homeopathy and more natural approaches. And that's, you see that. People don't see that though, because, you know, in society today, it's like we've been brainwashed to think these are the foods that animals eat. They come in a bag and they sit on a shelf. That's the natural food for your cat or your dog. No, and if you look at the closest relative to dogs, for instance, the wolf, I mean, first and foremost, wolves fast for many days out of the year because where they are, you know, they might not be able to find prey. They do eat animals, small rodents and other rabbits and things like that. Or they have done studies showing the wolves, and I can't remember what part of the country, but they like have lived off of berries for long periods of time, which is why I give my dogs a lot of berries. I'm growing berry bushes in my backyard because of that reason, you know. And I will say my dog Francis has, you know, recently destroyed one of my berry bushes because I had a little fence around it and he jumped it and he picked off like every blackberry off this one bush. Had a heyday, which is fine. I mean, blackberries are good for him, but you know, unfair to the other dogs that also like blackberries. But yeah, blackberries are blueberries, they're all excellent. And did you know blackberries are a source of iron? I mean, minerals that we think we have to get from animal foods are in these berries. That's why Dr. Morris is a big fan of the berries. Fruits, berries, and melons. Berries are so nutritious. All right. But yeah, Chantal, to answer your question, I do believe she had something else going on with her. And you know, people that come into any way of lifestyle that where they become an influencer, whether it's the carnivore movement or the keto movement or the raw foods movement, I mean, you're going to get all types of people getting into all of these different types of movements. And some of them may not be the most stable or the most healthy. And, you know, if she was dealing with anorexia, she might have had some deep rooted emotional issues, which is sad, you know. And you do see with raw foods, people do lose a lot of weight. And some people are like, you know, when they've lost the weight, they want to keep going down that direction. I think I heard somebody comment that perhaps she was doing some dry fasting, which is a very dangerous way to detoxify. I mean, I think that there's a place in rare instances for short-term dry fasting, but not this long dry fasting that I've seen people, you know, experiment with. I think you're playing with fire because we do need hydration, which is why the fruits are so beautiful, because they bring the structured water into our bodies. The water that has spun and moved within the root system of the plant, adding energy to that water so that it flows most easily in our body. You know, when you're getting water from like a still pool or pond and it has no life to it, no movement, that's dead water. You want water that has moved. If you get into David Avocado Wolf, he talked about, he had this one kind of device that he pours his water through and it spins the water and it like passes through all of these various crystals and whatnot, and then it comes out the other end, and that's what he calls living water. But that's what the plants do naturally, right? And even like natural spring water as it's moving through the earth, that's moving water. So we need that hydration, we need that movement. And water is just so powerful. I mean, you've seen that one, I think he's Chinese, I can't think of his name, Emoto perhaps, but he did experiments with water, and water does store energy. And who knows, maybe it's the water that's storing everything. Look into the work of Tom Cowan, Dr. Tom Cowan. He has a book on water, and it's water and something else. I have all of his books, but I'd have to go down to my library and pull it out. But he gets into the importance of water within like our cells and within our bodily fluids, like the blood and whatnot. Okay. Rocky is writing, I have been vegan for years, but ever since I've gone pretty much raw, my eye circles are so bad and more sunken in. It's not hereditary. I've never had this issue and I'm 40. I sleep very well and take good. So Rocky, you're saying that, oh, you take good care of my skin. Sorry, I should read the rest of it. Never had skin issues. I have good skin, minimal wrinkles. I'm thinking maybe kidney weakness, but I do filter. Is it a mineral deficiency? It bothers me. So you're saying your eyes, you have circles under your eyes. So when we look at the face, under the eyes here, and let's see if I can get my bigger screen up so you can see me. So like right here where my pinkies are, that's adrenal glands, and then the rest of this is kidneys, okay? And so when I see like darkness here, it's hard because I need glasses. Ever since the damn pandemic, I tell you, all that online teaching. But when I see darkness close to the center, like closer to your nose, that's adrenals. And so that could be, if the darkness is more towards the center, it could be an adrenal issue. If it's more on the lower part or to the side, to the lateral sides, that could definitely be kidneys. I would say, you can work with maybe some of the cell salts, work with some of the herbs. I'm really trying to get back into, the cell salts. I've been rereading this book, The Biochemic Prescriber, on the 12 cell salts. And I've been using it more recently with my dog Willard. And part of, him coming back to was me giving him some different cell salts. And that seemed to help him quite a bit. The cell salts work a little bit different than homeopathic remedies. They're both potentized formulas. With homeopathy, it's a very challenging art to study, because you have to go with the symptom profile and find the exact remedy for whatever. But I like the cell salts because they're dealing with deficiencies. And so if you're having a deficiency, I would definitely look at the cell salts. Dr. Morse, actually, maybe I'll just pull it up. He's a big fan of the cell salts. And he has a chart that I used to have. Oh, where are you? Here it is. I will share my screen so y'all can see it. Maybe I won't share my screen. Okay. Now, where did it go? Here it is. Okay. So there are 12 cell salts. And the story goes with the cell salts. They're really simple to use. I think it's a much simpler system than homeopathy. I think homeopathy is great. I've seen it do miracles for my dogs, but it's a very complicated system. And even like I work with a homeopath that thinks it's too complicated, and he does something that's called Heilkunst homeopathy, where he uses timeline therapy. I've talked about it in previous live streams. But anyway, the cell salts, there's only 12 of them. And the cool thing about the cell salts is that it's based on deficiencies. So by taking these remedies, they're potentized, much like the homeopathic remedies, but they're at a lower potency. So like the 6x is a common potency for the cell salts. And you look at, this, you are looking at, what your patient or client is presenting with, but it's usually, if it's a sign of a deficiency, they're going to have certain symptoms. So like, like calc phos is good for people with anemia. Many like children that have that are slow growing, or have problem with teething. These are great remedies, and you just take, like 4 of them, dissolve them under your tongue. I usually recommend like taking 4 little dissolvable pellets like 3 or 4 times a day, and just do that until the symptoms go away. So, if you're looking at like the under the eyes, I'd have to go through it because, I'm not a cell salt expert by any means, but, just look at these different symptoms. But there is also a book. I wish I had it handy. I think it's in my basement, but there is a book about the face and the cell salts, facial recognition and the cell salts. I wonder if I can find it. I will share my screen. If I can find it. I tell you, you can't find anything helpful on YouTube. Well, this one says it has it. I don't know. I'll just share this right here. So like, here's a website I came across. I don't know how good this is, but how to see mineral deficiencies in your face and what cell salts can to use to correct them. So, you know, if you have under the eyes, like right here, this person, you can see the darkness right there. That definitely looks like adrenal, right? So I would say probably something adrenal going on, but there is a cell salt that can strengthen the deficiency that the adrenal gland might be experiencing. So I would do a combination of both, you know. I would look at using the cell salts to strengthen that deficiency. And really what it does, it's not that the cell salts are adding the minerals to your body, because it's a potenized form. It's a homeopathic preparation. What it's doing is it's strengthening the vital force of, like, let's say the adrenal gland, so that it can better assimilate that mineral from the foods you've absorbed in your diet. So it get, like, let's say you have, for example, anemia. Okay, so when you're anemic, you have low energy, low red blood cell count. You might take, and this is the one I gave to my dog Willard, because he was very lethargic, and you know, when you look at his gums, they were a little bit lighter than they should have been. You know, they should be a nice pink color. So I'm like, okay, maybe he's, you know, losing some vital fluids there. So I started giving him ferrum phos, which is iron phosphate, that cell salt. And I actually was rotating with calc phos in one of the books. They said both of them, rotating them was a beneficial way to, you know, reverse this anemia. And it was when I started doing that he started coming back too. You know, I thought he was going to pass away, and then the cell salts started to turn him around. And, you know, I'm just using that as long as I can for him, but rotating that daily. So you might want to try that if you've been using the herbs and you're on the diet. There could be a deficiency that needs to be addressed, and the cell salts are a simple and very inexpensive way to address these types of deficiencies. There are great books, like I said. I pulled this one out. You can't see me now, but this is, oh, I'm way past the 1 hour mark. But this is called The Biochemic Prescriber. I like this guy because it's just a book on how to find the best cell salt for you. You can get this one. There might be others. And then, like I said, there's books on facial reading where you can look at somebody's face and determine where the deficiency is, which is something they do in like traditional Chinese medicine as well. All right, let's get back. We can continue on even though I'm past the 1 hour mark. Let's see. So hopefully, Rocky, that answers your question. Look into the cell salts for that issue with your face. Karen writes, I had really bad acid burn during detox, so I'm on a break and getting ready to start again. Is there a way to minimize the burn during urination? Yeah, sometimes that happens. I've had people have the burning during urination, and even when defecating, when pooping. And it just kind of depends on what the body is eliminating, really. I mean, you could have some inflamed tissue down there that is very sensitive. One thing you can try is maybe, you know, taking like a bath with like oatmeal. There are things, I'd have to look it up. I haven't had anybody that's experienced that in a while, so I don't have all of my tools to go to, but there are soothing things you can do to help reduce inflammation on the skin. And yeah, the area around the genitals is very sensitive, especially if, you know, you're experiencing that during detoxification. Stephanie writes, how would you respond to someone who argues against fruit being good for people with everyone is different? Well, I mean, humans really aren't that different from each other. I mean, I think that we all have color vision. We all have hands with opposable thumbs. We all tend to have the same length of a digestive tract. You know, Dr. Morris is writing a book, and I'm helping him on the fruitarian diet and why it is the ideal diet for man. So hopefully that book will address some of those, issues that people claim that, their body needs. Their body needs meat, or their body needs this type of food. We really don't. I mean, I think maybe some people are more toxic than others. And so when they go on a fruit diet, it's going to create more detoxification responses in their body. That's definitely something I see. Some people detoxify more forcefully, and that could be because they have a stronger vital force that's pushing out the toxins and they feel really sick, which is why they think, oh, I can't eat fruit because it makes me too sick. Well, if they, let the body get through the detox and they get to the other side of that, they're going to feel amazing. And most people give up before they get to the other side, though, which is sad. Hi, Doug. Thank you for loving my lectures. I appreciate that. Rocky writes, can anxiety disorders be caused by inflammation of the nervous system or parasites? I've heard this one recently. It seems like a lot of people don't get better from therapy. Anxiety is, a lot of times you see with anxiety, adrenal gland weaknesses. One thing about, speaking of a lot of emotional disorders that might result in somebody going to talk therapy, I kind of agree with that, with therapy in general. A lot of people, and if you watch that Sarah Erica video, coming back to that again, she touches upon this as well. With talk therapy, a lot of times you're just reliving the past and it's not really helping you heal. Yeah, I remember what happened to me and we're reliving it and I'm telling you, and maybe, the therapist can empathize with you. I mean, I can see it supporting you if you don't have anybody to empathize with you. Sometimes it's nice to have somebody say, hey, I'm really sorry that happened to you. And the therapist might have you do various activities, but really, I think you need to go deeper than just talk therapy. Maybe some types, and I'm not an expert in all types of psychoanalysis, so I don't want to claim that there is another type that could be more beneficial that I'm just not aware of. But I think that when you detoxify, it does address those emotional issues as well. And even though it's cleansing you physically, it's creating a state within yourself where you are, for maybe the first time in your life, doing something that's loving towards yourself. When you go on a detoxification program, it's an act of self-love. So you are telling yourself, I'm important enough to make sure that I'm taking in only the best organic raw foods or whatever you happen to be eating. I mean, this principle can also hold true for other types of diets. Don't get me wrong. It's just that the fruit diet is going to be the most powerful. But when you're disciplined, and that's the word, discipline, when you're disciplined enough to stick with, like a mono fruit diet, like let's say you are going to do 40 days of grapes. You're telling yourself that I love myself enough that this is what I'm going to do. And the body responds to that through healing. And that's probably, at the emotional, the etheric level, a level you needed to heal, because maybe you lived your whole life where you weren't showing yourself enough love. So, we have to look at that aspect of healing, right? And I think that when we do these types of programs, whether you're doing a juice cleanse, a grape fast, or whatever, you're learning about something, you're incorporating it, and you're embracing it, and you're just loving your body by doing it. And there's a lot to be said. Like, when I juice, I try to have happy, upbeat music on, and, I hold the juice. I love the juice. I thank the juice. As I mentioned, Emoto, I think, was the name of the man, Japanese or Chinese man that studied water, because the water in these hydrating fruits and juices, it takes on that energy and that gets incorporated into our body. Stuart writes, I don't seem to be able to slow detox. I've developed holes in multiple teeth, but whenever I've try a large salad meal, I end up with horrible pain, cramps, puffiness, inflammation. Bananas too. holes in your teeth. I would, speaking of the cell salts, calc phos, calc fluor, the calcium based cell salts, I would look into those, rotating those. Because those are great for the teeth. Again, sometimes we need the energetic help. And so look into the cell salts for that. That might help to address some of your detox symptoms, which is why I like the cell salts for that very reason. I think they help the body strengthen the organs that help us detoxify more effectively. Homeopathy tends to look at one symptom and you're kind of you're looking at a symptom profile. But with the cell salts, you're looking at deficiencies. And sometimes you might be deficient in something that is a needed aspect of an organ of detoxification. So look into those cell salts. Stuart also writes, I've been on a raw, high fruit diet for 3 years and went critically ill to be able to work and went from critically ill, to be able to work, etc. But because of these issues, I've never been able to take a break. So yeah, I guess if I'm hearing you right, Stuart, that you can't get off the detox because you start having too many issues when you eat regular foods. Steamed veggies gave me pain so bad I thought I was going to lose my salivary glands. Do you have any advice? So if I'm understanding you correctly, you have holes in your teeth. Did the holes in your teeth come before you started to transition back to the greens? I guess maybe I just don't have enough information, but as far as look into the cell salts, I would start there. And because it seems like you are deficient in something and you need to strengthen something. Are you using the herbs? That's another question I would ask as well. Rocky writes, what, you're in your 50s? I thought 40s for sure. Oh, well, thank you so much. Yes, I am now in the decade of my 50s. I know sometimes when I say my age to somebody, I don't believe it myself. It's not that I think I look young. I feel like I'm 10. I mean, I really do feel like very immature. And, I do talk to dogs most of the day. So, and they talk back to me. Maybe I'm crazy. But anyway, it feels weird to say that I'm in my 50s. It feels strange. Stephanie writes, it's a Japanese man, Emoto's messages in water. Thank you, Stephanie. I thought Japanese, that's right. Thank you for reminding me that. Where do you get cell salts? Diana, good question. The cell salts, they're from many different, you can get them on Amazon, but if you don't like Amazon, which I don't blame you, you can look into Highlands cell salts. That's one of the biggest vendors that I know of. All of the cell salts I have are from Highlands. I just get the whole 12 cell salts in a kit. And then, when I run out of one, I just replace it as needed. But Highlands, I'll write Highlands in the chat box so you can see the name. I think there's other vendors that sell cell salts as well. Sometimes Amazon, even though you don't have to order for them, it is good to kind of see your options with Amazon. So you can investigate different vendors that sell cell salts. And then you can determine, what vendor you want to go to. But yeah, I got all of mine from Highlands. It looks like Stephanie did as well. And so did Rocky. And let's see, Stuart writes, been using herbs that as I can afford them, usually adrenal and 2 kidneys. Teeth had some issues before, but developed much worse on raw and currently developing still. So with your teeth, one thing I would recommend to help remineralize the teeth is don't use any toothpaste that has glycerin in it. Most of your commercial toothpastes have glycerin as an ingredient. And glycerin blocks the minerals from getting into the teeth, which is incredibly stupid. So use a natural toothpaste without glycerin. You can use Dr. Morse's tooth and gum powder. I think that's great. So I would do something like that when you're brushing your teeth. Use something more natural. There are toothpastes out there though that don't have glycerin. Another good thing I would try is maybe some oil pulling for the teeth. I do oil pulling every single morning. It's just part of my morning routine. So when I wake up, I get some coconut oil. You can use other oils as well. And I just swish it in my mouth while I'm doing my morning activities. And I do it for about 20 minutes. And then after I spit the oil out, I get some warm salt water. And for about 2 minutes, I swish warm salt water. And I use, real sea salt, which has all of the minerals. I don't swallow it, but I swish it in my mouth. And it's just like going up against my gums, and the salts are also astringently pulling from the gum line. So that's part of my tooth care routine every day. And being that someone that eats a ton of fruit and drinks a lot of juices, I don't have teeth issues. So, and when I was a kid, I did, I loved candy as a child, which is probably why fruit is such an easy thing for me to eat, because I do have a sweet tooth. But yeah. So let's see. But yeah, I would try that. And then what else might I recommend? Maybe try like some kelp or sea moss. Those are good things, mineral rich substances that you can add to smoothies. I like the sea moss from what's his name? I can't think of his name. Marcus Rothkrantz. He has a good sea moss. And Kara, his partner, she has a video on how she, creates a gel out of it, and then you can scoop a little bit of that gel and like throw it in a smoothie. But that's a very mineral rich substance. And I think that would be a good thing to kind of incorporate into your diet. Get some of those minerals in there. But again, the cell salts homeopathically, and I don't like to use that word homeopathically, but they energetically provide your body with the ability to absorb and assimilate the needed minerals that you might be deficient in. So it sounds like you are deficient in something. And, you can eat a lot of foods that have those minerals in them, but if you don't resolve the energetic level of why you can't absorb it, you might not be able to, address that deficiency most notably. Let's see. Stuart writes, I usually brush once per day in the morning with tooth and gum powder and coconut oil. Great. Comfrey root is great too. I think that's in the tooth and gum powder. And oil pulling with tooth and gum comfrey. Been doing that for the last year. So that's good. Yeah, try the salt water, but also try the cell salts. Something should, hopefully. Dulse is good. Yeah, some of those sea vegetables, very mineral rich. So it's good to, have the minerals there, even though you can get a lot of the minerals from fruits. Keep in mind, like I said, like blackberries have iron in them. Oranges have calcium. We don't think of that. We think of calcium. Oh, you need milk for calcium. Oranges have a lot of calcium. Greens obviously have a ton of calcium. So you can get minerals from your plant foods. You don't have to go to the sea vegetables, but maybe if you need a richer source, the sea vegetables might be an option. But the cell salts, again, the way they work is more at the energetic level of how we're strengthening the organs that require and assimilate those minerals. And then I'll do one more question, but then I have to go because I need to feed my dogs. I was thinking about getting sea moss again, used it a long time ago, but it was just a trend. Yeah, I think it's coming back a little bit. I've seen a couple of videos where people talk about sea moss. Again, I like the stuff from Marcus Rothkrantz. I think he's very, deliberate with where he sources his sea vegetables from, because you have to be careful with sea vegetables. Sometimes they're harvested from areas that are polluted, and you don't want those toxins getting into your sea vegetables. But like I said, if you don't have an issue with your teeth or a certain deficiency, you can get most of the minerals from your fruits and vegetables. But thank you all for joining me this evening. I do appreciate you all being here, and I thank you for the well wishes for my puppy, who he's probably getting hungry, so I'm going to feed them. But thank you so much, and I will be back next Friday. Join my I put the Facebook group in the chat box. Join that group if you'd like to communicate with me. I'm trying to get better to getting back to answering my Facebook messages and my business page, but sometimes when I'm very busy during the week, I don't get to it it might take 4 or 5 days. But anyway, see y'all next week.